Today I want to talk about the Chrysler GF. This is an American Tier 8 premium heavy tank which in my opinion it just doesn't make sense for the American line, and it's a vehicle which Wargaming really squandered. Like, this vehicle could have been pretty much the E75 TS before the E75 TS was a thing. This could have been the E75 TS from about 2 or 3 years ago, but for some reason Wargaming, like, instead of making it like this, as in like giving it a decent part to weight ratio and giving it a decent like top speed and overall mobility, Wargaming instead decided just to give it overwhelming levels of armor and just leave it everything else the way it was. So they left it with a 35 km/h top speed, just give it stupid amounts of armor, and then just give it a bad gun. So what they've done here is they've created a tank which should have been a tier 7 premium, but made it a tier 8 premium just because sells better. Because the original armor model for this tank, I can still remember it because I remember seeing it about 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was on, what was it called, FTR? Like, for the record, like back when that was a thing. It had 203mm of frontal turret armor. It had 152mm of lower front plate armor, 101 or 102mm of upper front plate, and 76.2mm of side armor. This thing should have been a tier 7 premium. 100%, because those armor values would have worked perfectly for tier 7, and the gun was the same as it is now, pretty much. That's one way they could have balanced it, but the other way they could have done it is they could have just left the part weight ratio as it is right now, up top speed to maybe 50, because the gun impression is pretty crap on this thing, and there's no real way to improve that, and then give it like a gun that has, like, say, a 215, 220 penetration. Like, it really wasn't hard to make this tank decent. I mean, just get rid of the front armor being overwhelmingly strong, bring it back to the way it would have been, like in the previous armor model which I mentioned, because right now it has 150mm upper front plate, it's either 203 or 180mm of lower front plate, 254mm of frontal turret, and 102mm of side armor. Genuinely, they could have just given this thing mobility and it would have been decent. I mean, the reason why the Centurion 5.1 was there is because it actually would have had around about the same part weight ratio as this thing does, but just this thing has a 35 km/h top speed, whereas the Centurion has a 50 km/h top speed. They could have genuinely made this thing about as mobile as Centurion, but just with a technically punchier gun, because it would have higher alpha damage but a bit less penetration. But because it has 4 degrees worse gun depression, that would have made sense. I don't know, like, just the way they balance this vehicle is just something which I always look back on and just go, that was a wasted opportunity. You just ruined this tank. Also, like, I've never been happier I didn't buy a tank. Whenever they released this vehicle, I looked at it and just went, do I want to get that or do I not? Because I like armor. Like, that's something I've always liked having in a tank. I've always liked having great armor on a machine. But then I just looked at it again, just looked, oh god, the guns got awful. Like, do I still want this thing? And then I looked at the top speed and it was just like, okay, so you've given it a bad top speed with a bad gun. There's, like, those two things don't work well together, because, you know, the reason why things like medium tanks work is because they can have, like, worse penetration because they make up for it in their ability to, like, get around targets. For a heavy tank that has a crap top speed and doesn't have a very good traverse speed either, it doesn't work. I don't get their thoughts on, like, what they were doing with this thing. Like, it seems weird. But let's try and go into a fight here and just see if I can show you the problems with this thing, because we have a couple of heavily armored vehicles on the enemy team, like the VK100 and the 703 version 2. And I think the 703 version 2, like, it's a vehicle which I can do damage to, but it'll probably wind up winning the fight against me fairly easily if the person has sense in how they're playing it, because the 703 is a vehicle which is very strong, but you do need to play it in a very particular way, because if you play it too aggressively and you get too sort of ballsy in the way you're playing it, then you can very easily get yourself killed, because, like, it's very easy to, like, sort of get, like, what's the word, sort of cocky because of the double barrel gun, because you can shut down 2 tanks at once. But if there's a third tank, then you basically, like, made yourself vulnerable for, like, 11 seconds. And that's another thing with this machine, like, it's side armor. People have a tendency to, like, snapshot at you, because they think to themselves like, oh, this should be like an easy penetration. But this thing here, even though it has really like tall sides and its armor is flat for the most part, like it is angled to an extent but not angled very well, like people have a tendency to just like kind of just go for shots on you even if they're not going to pen. But we need to focus down the 703 because the 703 has a very potent gun, well, potent guns, and the 703 has been dealt with. Now the IS will be very easy to handle. But the question is, where is the VK100? Because the VK100 could be practically anywhere at this point. Kill you too. So the VK100 must be on the other flank, which is weird because I would never take a VK100 over to that flank. It's too big. Like, that's the area where tank destroyers go to basically like fire each other. So I don't understand why you would ever take a VK100, like the tank destroyer's wet dream, over to that sort of position, because there's nothing a tank destroyer would love more than to shoot at that. But well, I guess he got lucky in this game because there were no tank destroyers over there on our side. And there's Super Hellcat. And if you're wondering why I'm just pushing forward just so brazenly, it's just because getting below their guns is the main thing I need to do, just in order to, you know, keep them lit so that they're not able to fall back and just sort of pepper the people up on top of the hill without any sort of retaliation. Although saying that, there, the Barask did actually wind up going up to spot them anyway, so it didn't really matter that I pushed forward. But let's try and kick out some damage here, try and finish off some of the enemy tanks and get rid of them. So there's the Super Hellcat dead, and now the Udes is on very low health, so I should be able to kill him fairly easily. And there is a KB2 in the background. That's actually a big threat to me, because that's actually something I forgot about with this vehicle, which I meant to mention earlier. This vehicle, it does have good, what you call it, like good armor overall, but HE rounds that hit the front of the turret in this thing have a tendency to set it on fire. And that's something which I saw in YouTube comments, like whenever I was initially buying this thing, like during the black market. And I thought to myself, that seems like it's coming from experience. That seems like it's probably something that happens a lot, because you wouldn't really point it out if it wasn't something that happened consistently. And yeah, the guy was exactly right in terms of like the way this thing feels to play. It feels really good in like top tier engagements, but the second it's against higher tiered vehicles, it just doesn't really handle itself very well. And yeah, that guy did not really like time that very well. But let's just try and finish off this KB2. And yeah, it was kind of ballsy for me to just kind of cliff dive on top of this KB2, but I figured, screw it, why not? Considering the circumstances. Also, we have multiple vehicles like still alive on our team, so we should be able to what you call it, just continue pushing forward into these guys hopefully, and potentially get a little bit more damage. I'm getting a little bit brazen here, but you know, I'm confident we're going to win this game, so it doesn't really matter. And I did manage to light up the Udes, so the Udes probably wind up being killed, or well, kill himself potentially. So I'm not really too fearful of losing. I was just kind of just going balls to the wall at the end, just to show you kind of how this tank performs against lower tiered vehicles. Like, I didn't get shot that much in that game, but you can see that this thing is able to kind of rack up the damage when it's against lower tiered vehicles. But the problem, and well, hopefully I'm going to be able to show you here in a minute, is whenever it's against higher tiered vehicles. Like, I actually did manage to get like a high caliber in that game, and was top of the team in terms of damage, so not too bad. When it comes to profitability, I need to take away the 80,000, so take away 80,000 from 160k. So this thing can make decent profits, it looks like, whenever you're not firing any gold rounds at all, and whenever you do about 3,000 damage. Now I want to try and show how this thing handles itself against tier 9s. So pretty much what I wind up doing most of the time in this vehicle whenever I'm against higher tiered vehicles is I usually end up just shooting them in the tracks, because my guess for what's more efficient in terms of making credits is firing like standard rounds but doing tracking damage, like, well, getting tracking distance damage, if that makes sense. Will probably wind up making you more credits in my mind than just spamming gold rounds and doing normal damage. Like, that's my assumption. I would guess that's probably the most effective way of making credits, but I don't know if that's true or not. I'm actually not sure how many credits you typically make for the damage that you do from assistance. Because for a long time I always heard like spotting damage as an example only get you XP, it didn't get you credits. So I really wonder how exactly that works out. And there's a renegade. So it's a stock Tiger 2 and me versus a renegade and a T44. Oh, and it's 1390 as well. But I was very deliberate in not going forward, and then all you guys decided to go forward anyway. Great. Awesome. So those guys are dead. I'm not going forward. I have too much experience of like going forward in that sort of circumstance and getting myself killed. So considering there's an Emil 1 shooting at them, 1390 got away at least. I'm just going to just try and blast away at these guys from range. Hopefully, yep, somebody will finish him off. So that's him gone. Stop pinging the map. That's really annoying. And weirdly, like I always heard the Renegade's like weak point was really weak, but I found that it's actually it seems to be a lot trickier to deal damage against than I expected. But yeah, I was very deliberate in not going forward there, because if I was the one to put myself in a situation where, well, they can easily pen me, they would obviously shoot at me, because getting rid of me, I'm a pain in the ass for them to deal with, so killing me would always be a benefit to them. And then there's things like that, where he somehow managed to kill my driver and my commander with a shot to the turret, I think. That's an interesting one. So, genuinely, against that Renegade, I'm very tempted to start farming gold rounds, because I'm just not able to do damage to him. Like, I'm aiming like directly at it, and it's only giving me a yellow penetration marker. But I will say, like, if I get an opportunity to shoot the Scorpion G with a HE round, I will take it. But so far, he's not really giving me the opportunity to do that. But the most important thing for me to do now is to avoid getting hit by the Scorpion G, because Scorpion G is firing gold rounds and that has over 300 penetration with gold rounds. So don't exactly want to get shot by that if I can help it. But I am concerned with where the 53 TP is. The 53 TP is my biggest concern by far right now. Come on, gun, come on. I'm just getting blasted with the HE rounds. Like, I'm gradually losing health, but at least artillery wasn't focusing on me there. And that standard B has just committed suicide there. I'm not going to rush forward, because that's just death for me. Like, if I can get a shot into the Scorpion G, like, I will take it, but no, those guys, I don't know why he did it like that. That was, I'm probably dead now. Like, my best thing to do here now is to fall back, but like, I would like to get one more shot off before I do, but I'm not even sure if I'll be able to. Screw it, I'm just gonna fire that shot off and then fall back. I need the tank destroyers to help me out. I can't win against a Scorpion G and a Renegade at once. And honestly, if the Scorpion G was on the ball there, he might be in a position to shoot me before I even get behind these rocks. Also, the 53 TP is still alive and still on this flank, more than likely. So, I need to be very cautious. Oh yeah, standard B, great. That guy was just like, Chrysler, nice unhelp. What the fuck do you expect me to do whenever you rush around the corner and do nothing? Like, you gave me no warning that you were going to rush around the corner. You just rushed around the corner just blindly and for no apparent reason. Like, he just did it out of the blue. Like, what did he expect me to do there in a slow heavy tank? But I think I might actually start loading HE rounds now from this point forward, just in order to try and kill off the Renegade as an example, because the Renegade, like, I pinned him once and that was because I could see his side armor. Scorpion G, if I can get a shot into him I will take it, but the biggest problem I'm having right now is that the Renegade's spotting for the Scorpion G, so the Scorpion G can time this effectively like how he wants. Or the 53 TP can roll behind me and kill me. But you saw how much I struggled against that Renegade. I was refusing pretty much as possible to avoid. I was trying to avoid firing gold rounds as much as possible. But in that situation, like, I really don't understand like what that standard B expected me to do, considering how far away I was. If I started rushing forward before the standard B even attempted to go around the corner, I wouldn't have made it to him. So if I was rushing forward after he'd already gone around the corner, all I would have did was effectively kill myself way earlier than I needed to. At least the way I died there, I was at least able to kill the Renegade, but I have no idea what that standard B expected me to be able to do, considering I'm in a Chrysler GF. It's not as if I was in, say, like a Patriot or something. If I was in a Patriot, I probably could have made it there because I had top speed. This thing had nowhere near high enough top speed to do that. And if I was in something like a T4 first prototype, I would have rushed for it because it would have been a quick enough tank. But this thing here, no chance in hell. Also, I think that's for the mission. Yes, it's for the mission. Okay, so the credits I made in that game was 90,000 with a premium account, but that's with a 50,000 credit booster because of a mission. So if you take away 50,000 from the 90k, that gives you 40,000 credits for that game for about 2,280 damage. I would say that's a pretty decent game when you're against tier 9s or tier 10s for this vehicle, because otherwise, I just don't, like, otherwise it's not the right word. In this tank, I just don't really expect you to really be able to do much more than that in the majority of games, because it just doesn't have the firepower to really consistently do damage. I mean, you can see there, I spent 17,000 credits on shots in that game. I mean, it's 1,000 credits a shot for the standard rounds, and I think one shot of the HE rounds is what gave me the 680. So that was 17,000 with a single gold round fired. If I was firing gold rounds in this thing, like, I fired 18 shots, one of them was a HE round, I think I probably would have been sitting over, well, 10 gold rounds is 40k, so 20 would be 80k, 72k, 68k, so 68k, 680 would have been how much I would have spent if I was firing all gold rounds in that game. That's just as an example. But I actually did fairly well in that game in comparison to the rest of my team. But yet again, standard B, dude, I don't understand what you wanted me to do in that situation. Like, I honestly thought you were going to just pop shots into them as they tried shooting at me. That's what I thought you were going for. But he just kind of just rushed around the corner, and I was just like, no, I'm not going to just throw my tank away, because all it's going to do is make me look like an idiot. So yeah, this tank, not the greatest when it's against tier 9s, tier 10s. I would rather play like pretty much any tier 8 medium tank rather than playing this thing. And the thing is, like, I'm just trying to think of a tier 8 premium heavy tank which I think would do worse in a tier 9 or tier 10 game. The only tier 8 premium tank which I can think of that can actually do worse than this thing in tier 9 and tier 10 games is the Marbreaker. All the other tier 8 premiums I genuinely think will be able to support themselves far better in a tier 9 or tier 10 game. I wouldn't recommend anybody buy this vehicle. I got it for credits during the black market, and I can tell you right now, if I bought this thing for gold or bought it for money, I would be incredibly disappointed in the way this vehicle feels to play.